Welcome back to our final section of the Ultimate Stress Relief video workshop. In this series of videos, we're going to actually take you through the stress category sheet that you downloaded from our webpage at giveuppain.com if you registered for this course. What you learned in the last video is quite basically that beliefs are thoughts that you just keep thinking. But any belief can be changed. And it's just a matter of applying a few principles. Now, in psychology, they call it the 4 R's, where you actually reveal a thought you're having, and then you work through it at that rate. I like to call it the Ickers method. And what that is, in Ickers, that means inform, conform, unform, and reform. So to change any belief, it's just a 4-step process is all it is. So in the inform stages is where we're actually starting to become honest with ourselves that we're having these thoughts in the first place. And then we conform to that, but we find acceptance for ourselves within that. Unforming that belief is believing that that is not truly who you are. You see, as I said, you're not born defective. There's nothing wrong with you. These are just beliefs that you're holding on to. So as we unform the belief, then it makes room to reform it and say, this is the life that I want. This is who I truly am. And I don't buy into all those old habits anymore or any of those old beliefs. So what we're going to take you through is each one of these little video sections is going to cover a category from the stress categories worksheet. Now, I understand there's tons and tons of subcategories there, but this will give you the general principle of how to go through and actually work on those beliefs that you have and reform them into something completely different. So let's get started. Our first topic is from the categories worksheet is relationships, and I'm just going to pick one of the subcategories within that, and that is I don't feel loved. And many people truly feel this inside for whatever reasons. It's self-worth and self-doubt, and you know, there's such a large percentage of people in the world that have these exact same emotions. You're not alone in it. You've got company in this that everybody else seems to believe the same things also. And I know this was one of my big challenges also. So let's get started. So we're going to start tapping on the karate chop part of the hand. And you're just going to tap on that and just repeat after me. Okay. So even though I don't feel loved, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I don't feel loved, perhaps I can forgive myself for feeling that way. Even though I don't feel loved, I deeply and completely accept myself. Okay, on to the next point is the eyebrow point, and we're just going to tap on there. I don't feel loved. Onto the side of the eye. I don't feel loved. Underneath the eye. I don't feel loved. Underneath the nose. I don't feel loved. On the chin point. I don't feel loved. On the collarbone point. This fear of not being loved. Underneath the arm. This fear of not being loved. On top of the head. All these fears of not being loved. Back to the eyebrow point. I don't feel loved, but it's okay. Onto the side of the eye. I don't feel loved, but I'm okay. Underneath the eye. I don't feel loved. Underneath the nose. I don't feel loved. Onto the chin. This feeling of not being loved enough. Onto the collarbone point. This fear of not being loved enough. Underneath the arm. This fear of not being loved. Finally, on top of the head, this fear of not being loved. Now take a deep breath in and let it out. You know, we have so many misconceptions around love, and it's funny, it seems to be the one thing that we all strive for. I know in relationships, one of the challenges we run into is that many people aren't even speaking the same language. A few years back, I had the opportunity of working with a couple who had had some relationship challenges. And when I asked the wife how, if she felt she was loved in her relationship, and she'd said no, she said, "I never felt loved." And I said, "Well, how would you know if your husband loved you?" And she said, "Well, he would have come in and he would have put his arms around me and given me a hug." I said, "Did he ever tell you that he loved you?" And she said, "Well, of course, he always was saying that, but I don't believe that because men always lie. Men have lied to me my whole life." And I thought it was very interesting. When I asked the husband, talking with him later, "Did you love your wife?" And he said, "Well, of course I love my wife." And he said, "I used to tell her that I loved her all the time." And I asked, "Did you ever think about giving her a hug or a kiss or anything like that?" And he says, "I'm not into all that mushy stuff." He said, "I don't like that." You see, oftentimes in relationships, you can have two people that love each other very much, but they're not speaking the same language. Some people need to be shown that they're loved. So if they love me, they would do the dishes, or they would bring me flowers, or they would take me out to dinner. That would be a person that needs to be shown that they're loved. Other types of people are, if you love me, you would tell me that you love me. And they need to hear those words. They need to hear those endearing words that we can use with each other. And yet another group of people interpret love as somebody that will touch them on the arm or give them a hug and a kiss or just hold hands with them and be affectionate that way. And although we all like all of these things in a relationship, we usually have one that's predominantly our main way of expressing love. And oftentimes people are not speaking the same language. So you could be in a relationship where two people are talking two different languages and just not communicating. And it doesn't mean that they love each other any less. So if you know this and you look at your relationship, then oftentimes you can change this around a little bit. Because there's something that I do believe. I do believe we're not getters of love, we are givers of love. And if you have ever just sat down and pet your cat or pet your dog, if you have one of those, and just seeing the reaction to that animal is just laying there accepting what you're giving them. And it makes you feel so good because, as I say, we are these givers of love, not getters of love. So if you understand what language your partner is speaking in, or your children, or your family members, if you pay attention to their words and their actions, then oftentimes if you want to show them love, if you want to give them love, you just speak in their language. Pretty soon they'll be talking back in your language too. And that helps you to understand the relationship better. That helps you build a new belief around love.